Okay. Welcome. It's a pleasure to be with you and to welcome Governor Cuomo back to Nassau County. Let's give the governor a big Nassau County welcome. I have the honor to introduce some of my colleagues in government, and let me begin by recognizing the Town of North Hempstead Supervisor, Judy Bosworth. Judy, congratulations to you as well. Rockville Center Village Mayor Francis Murray. Mayor Murray. And of course our host, and someone we're very proud of, our President of Nassau Community College, Ken Saunders. President Saunders. And he's here today with several members of the board. I'd like to acknowledge from the Board of Trustees, its President, Dr. George Garden. George? I believe Vice President Kathy Weiss. And Trustee Ed Powers is with us here today. And welcome all. What a great day. I've had the pleasure of working with Governor Cuomo for the last 3 years. He's a tremendous advocate for the people of Nassau County and a true partner in Albany. He has stood with us when times were good and was a constant presence when times were tough, like during and after Hurricane Sandy. The governor is someone who puts people before politics and works across the aisle to move the state and the county forward. And it has worked. The governor has demonstrated an unrelenting commitment to reversing our state's reputation as the tax capital of the nation. And that is something that Long Islanders deeply care about, particularly when it comes to property taxes. The governor recognizes that New York has the highest property taxes in the country, and he is facing that problem head on. In his first year in office, the governor tackled the issue of property taxes, making the impossible possible when he passed the state's first ever property tax cap. But this year, yes. But this year, the governor has gone even further. In a few minutes, you'll hear about his plan to provide more relief to the hardworking families across Long Island. This is the type of fiscal responsibility we have come to expect from our governor, someone who seeks to put the money back in our taxpayers' pockets and has finally put an end to the tax and spend insanity that ran Albany into the red for decades. And now, it is my honor to introduce a colleague in government, a friend, Assemblyman Charles Levine. Thank you, Chuck, for your partnership in Nassau County. Welcome.
And thank you, County Executive Mangano. It is a pleasure to be here today with each and every one of you. And I want to take a moment just to acknowledge some of my fellow members of the Assembly who have joined us here as well. Deputy Speaker Earlene Hooper. Earlene. Assemblyman Ed Rod. My colleague Michael Montesano. And Joseph Saladino. Dave McDonough. Dave, where are you? And Assembly Member Michaela Solage. And I want to thank Governor Cuomo for inviting me to be here today to speak with you as we hear about the governor's 2014-2015 executive budget and its significance, its true significance for the future of our state. Now, it's important for us to remember that when Governor Cuomo took office just a few years ago in 2011, the future of our state was certainly very much in doubt. New York was known as the capital of governmental gridlock. We were notorious for high taxes, high spending, and late budgets. So in a relatively short period of time, Governor Cuomo has helped to change all of that. And thanks to these achievements over the course of the past 3 years, New York is moving in the right direction. We are continuously delivering for the citizens of our state, and I want Governor Cuomo to know that I will work side by side with him, as will the members of the State Assembly, to pass a budget that's on time and a budget that's responsible, and we will continue with the tremendous progress that we have made in our great state to make it, the Empire State, as great as it can be. It is now my distinct pleasure to introduce my friend and my colleague, Senator Carl Marcelino. Carl.
These podiums are extremely tall because the governor is tall, so we're going to have to stand erect. My mother always told me to stand up straight. Good posture is important. Thanks, Chuck. I appreciate the kind words. And on behalf of the New York State Senate delegation, I'm proud to be here today to welcome Governor Cuomo back to Nassau County. He's always welcome here. And over the past 3 years, we've seen how much can be accomplished when we focus on shared goals and forge compromises when necessary. We want to put people of New York first. The special interests can take a step back. The people of New York can take a step forward under the governor's actions and in coordination with the State Senate and the State Assembly. The past 3 legislative sessions have been nothing short of transformative. New York went from being a high-tax state on a spending spree to a fiscally responsible government attractive to businesses and families alike. We are moving in the right direction for a change, and that's a good thing. Getting our fiscal house in order was the responsibility and was the responsible first step, and we were just getting started. This year, like the past 3, we are going to put partisan politics aside. Really? We're going to put, oh, okay. That's what it says. I like it, but it's, we'll see it. We're going to put partisan politics aside and work together to give the people of New York what they deserve, a government that benefits them and not the special interests. The governor's budgets call for property tax relief, controlling spending, and incentives for new businesses that will help ensure the long-term viability of our communities. That is how we know that New York government is working. Unemployment is the lowest since the recession. We rank second in the nation for private sector job growth, and we're going to be first very soon. We're not going to be satisfied with second. Who wants to be second? We want to be first. And the governor believes in that, and we're going to move ahead. We've got the momentum and the track record to keep it going, which is exactly what we're going to do in this next session, working with the governor on his budget. That's what we were elected to do by the people of our districts and the people of the state of New York. And I, for one, look forward to carrying out the mission with the governor, because it has to be a partnership. Can't do it alone. Neither house can do it alone, and the governor can't do it by himself. He needs partners. We're going to make sure he has partners in the New York State Senate. Chuck's going to make sure he has partners in the New York State Assembly. And now I would like to thank the governor for being here today on Long Island. Welcome him back to this community. Anytime you want to buy a house, we got it all worked out for you. I got a couple of houses up on the North Shore in my district. I want you to be my constituent. You know, come on, we got to make sure. Now I'd like to introduce someone who does live on Long Island and who's been a lifelong New Yorker and a Nassau County resident, Mr. Christopher Witten Hagan. Chris.
Good morning. My name is Christopher Witten Hagan. It is my pleasure to be here with our local officials and Governor Cuomo. I thank him for inviting me to speak today. I'm a resident of Seaford. As someone who lives in Nassau County my whole life, I know firsthand how much of a toll our property taxes can have on our family budget. Every month, property taxes are a drain on our bills, and you have absolutely no control over it. Currently, I pay $7,200 a year in property tax. My job as a plumber is $85,000 a year. That means I pay nearly 10% of my salary just for property tax. With 2 kids and my wife Amory, who is a full-time student currently earning a master's degree at Hofstra, $7,200 is a lot of money. I work hard to bring home money, and pay the bills and no default on anything. With my wife at school, my salary supports our family, and giving away nearly 10% of it away is tough. We all pitch in. My wife, Amory, sits and cuts coupons for an hour. She said a half hour, but she made me say an hour, so we can afford our groceries. So, but it would really make a difference in some tax relief to make things just a bit easier. So the governor's plan to provide property tax relief to average homeowners like me is a great news. The hundreds of dollars in savings that we would get under his plan would help buy groceries and pay the bills. It would make a real difference for New Yorkers working and middle-class families, and I am proud to support it. On behalf of Long Island homeowners, I thank the governor for his work. Now it is my pleasure to introduce the governor of the state of New York, Andrew Cuomo.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Good morning to all of you. It is truly my pleasure to be back in Nassau with so many friends. Such a beautiful place to be. First to Chris, I thank him very much for the kind introduction. I also want to introduce Eric and Sophia. Stand up, Eric and Sophia, so they can see you. Now, you see that special haircut that Eric has? I was admiring that in the back room. I said, I think I could wear that haircut. I think it would work for me. And then I could say, Governor Cuomo, he's straight down the middle with that haircut, right? That would work. Give them a round of applause, Eric and Sophia. Thank you for being here. To Assemblyman Chuck Levine, pleasure to be with you. Thank you very much for all your good work and your partnership. Let's give the Assemblyman and all the Assembly members a round of applause. Senator Carl Marcelino, the senator, does a lot of great work. We do a lot of work on texting and driving together. The senator's been a great leader on that issue. And I believe New York has some of the best laws on that issue. I believe we've saved lives and we're going to save more. The senator's a personal friend of mine, and he doesn't even know what an asset he is to me. My sister Margaret lives in the senator's district. So occasionally the senator will run into my sister Margaret, and he says nice things about the job I'm doing. So all my sister Margaret knows when she sees me, she says, well, Senator Marcelino says you're doing a great job, so you must be doing great. So thank you very much. Give him a round of applause, Senator Carl Marcelino. And all the members of the Senate. Dr. Saunders, thank you for making this great facility available, and thank you to all the staff at Nassau Community College. I know it was a lot of work, but thank you. Give them a round of applause. To County Executive Ed Mangano. The County Executive spoke about leadership and about crossing the aisle on behalf of leadership. When I first proposed the property tax cap, which now everybody supports and now it's a no-brainer, as they say, people were nervous about it in the beginning. And the county executive really stepped up and really stepped across the aisle to forge a bipartisan coalition to support the property tax cap. And that's one of the reasons it took off as quickly as it did. And that's leadership. And you've also seen tremendous leadership in the aftermath of Hurricane Sandy. And you want to talk about a situation that is binary, where government either works or government doesn't work. You know, there's not a lot of explanation in the middle of a hurricane. Either the emergency response works and the cars show up and the trucks show up and the boats show up, or people die, right? It's that binary. Either we rebuild the homes and we rebuild the streets and we get them cleaned up, or we don't. And I tell you, the county executive has been marvelous in his response, and not only in his leadership, but in his product. And that's what it's all about. Let's give him a round of applause. County Executive Ed Mangano. And we're here to talk to you about the 2014-2015 budget for the state of New York. Sounds boring budget. It is a little boring, tell you the truth. But the budget actually fleshes out the overall vision for the state. We earlier did a State of the State address, which lays out the sort of big picture, the direction that we want to bring the state, and the budget actually fine-tunes that vision. We call it Building on Success because, as you've heard from my colleagues, we have had a good 3 years. And it's been a remarkable 3 years for the state, remarkable in that it's been much different than the preceding years. This state government had become a joke on late-night TV, literally. We had scandals, we had dysfunction, and it really has been a different story over the past 3 years, and I thank them for that. The priority for this budget is very simple. It's about jobs and creating jobs, get that economy running. If that economy is running, then local revenues are generated, people have hope, people have a direction, schools have a place to place people. And our theory was very simple, that New York State has no future as the tax capital of the nation, period. If you have the highest taxes in the country, you are not going to be successful as a competitive economy. It is that simple and that stark. How do you cut taxes? You reduce spending. It's not that hard to be a governor. There are some things that are very simple. You want to lose weight? Eat less calories, right? That's how that equation works. You want to cut taxes, then you actually have to spend less. Why are taxes so high in the state of New York? Because we spend a lot of money in the state of New York. And we have for a very long time. This is the story of the New York State government. Over the past 50 years, we spent more money than we made, okay? Income growth is the growth in personal income, how much your income is going up. The people of the state, how much their income went up. Their income went up about 6.2%. We were spending 6.8%. Inflation was only 4%. So over 50 years, we're spending more money than inflation. We're spending more money than the people of the state are actually making. That's why New York State is in the situation it's in. And it's not 1 year, not 2 years, it was over 50 years. And in many ways, it transcended politics. In those 50 years, you had every political combination you could imagine. You had Democratic governors, you had Republican governors, you had Democratic senates, you had Republican senates, you had every configuration. But the spending just kept going up at an unsustainable level. Why? Because, as the county executive said, the special interests were managing the budget process more than the politicians and the elected officials. What kind of difference did it make? If the state spending had gone up at the rate of personal income growth, which means if you spent everything you made, you didn't save a penny, everything that you made, you spent, the budget would be about $45 billion compared to the $84 billion that it is. That's what the overspending did to the state of New York. Government raised taxes too high, and we've seen businesses and people leave. We've been talking about the new mobility that business has, right? They can pick up and they can leave. Technology, internet, etc. And that's just been happening. How many people do you hear leaving Long Island? I can't afford the housing, I can't afford the taxes, I can't start off here, I have to move. That's the story. We've chased people from the state. What we've been about is reducing spending. And we have reduced spending. You want to lose weight? Eat less, right? It's a simple formula. It's very hard to do. Sustained implementation is difficult, but the formula is simple. And we have done it. Rockefeller Wilson days, they were spending 11% more on average. Spending was going up. Cuomo, we just say Cuomo. My father, Governor Mario Cuomo, over his 12 years, average rate of spending 6.9. Governor George Pataki, average rate of spending 5.2. Over the past 3 years, spending has been 0.9%. 0.9%. That's how dramatically we have cut government spending. Reduced spending allowed us to reduce taxes, and we did, and we cut taxes for every New Yorker in the state. Every income bracket pays less taxes today than the day I took office. Period, end of story. Taxes are going down all across the board. We started with a $10 billion surplus deficit 3 years ago. We now have a $2 billion surplus. We went from -10 to +2 in 3 years by getting our financial house in order. What do we want to do this year again? We want to cut taxes again. Why? Because it's working. And we believe that cutting taxes is actually an economic growth formula. Because businesses are staying, businesses are growing, people are increasing. This year we want to cut corporate taxes from 7.1 to 6.5. Makes a big difference for small business. A 20% manufacturer's credit for property taxes, what we call a renter's tax credit, a circuit breaker for low-income families who are struggling to pay property taxes, and we want to freeze property taxes all across the state. The tax we want to focus on is the property tax. People tend to think that the income tax is the big tax in the state of New York. It's not. It's not. We make more money from the property tax than the income tax. We raise about $50 billion from the property tax. The income tax is only about $40 billion. And no matter what analysis, New Yorkers don't just pay a high property tax. When you hear Chris talk about his property tax, you say, wow, that's a big number. It's one of the largest property taxes in the United States of America. Literally, we pay the highest property taxes in the country. Westchester, #1 in the country. So it's not just within New York. This is out of sync nationally. And it's one of the reasons people are leaving. You go buy a house in another part of the country, you don't have this problem of property taxes. Upstate New York pays the highest property taxes by percentage of home value, because the homes are worth less money, the average value of a house, but as a percentage of that home's value, they're paying some of the highest property taxes in the country. Why? Because we have too many local governments. It's that simple. We have 10,500 local governments. 10,500. Just think about that. Every morning you wake up, 10,500 light switches, 10,500 copying machines. It's a tremendous infrastructure to have to sustain. And even if you try to curb growth, there are so many governments that the economic cost is staggering. We want to freeze property taxes for every homeowner in the state for the next 2 years. So Chris's property tax would be frozen, meaning it would go up by the local government's assessment, but the state would give Chris a tax credit to freeze his property taxes where it is for the next 2 years. It'd be the first time in modern history that Chris's property taxes don't go up, right? And it's frozen in place. But what we want to say to the local governments is, we'll give Chris a tax credit and we'll freeze his property taxes, but there's a but, and the but is, but the locality has to agree to stay within the property tax cap of 2%, and we want a plan from the local governments about how they're going to save money and how they're going to find shared services and work together and bring down this overbearing infrastructure cost among the 10,500 governments. So we want a plan that goes out for 3 years where they show us how they're going to save 1% a year for the following 3 years. Now, the local government leaders are all upset at me, and they say, well, you know, you're putting a lot of pressure on us. Yes, I am. You know why? Because there's a lot of pressure on Chris, and there's a lot of pressure on his wife. And I understand it's hard to balance a budget and cut 1%, but it's harder for Chris to balance his budget than it is for government to balance their budget. And we have to do something to get these structural costs under control. And 1%, we're asking savings of 1%, which I believe is totally doable. You take a place like Nassau County, 300 local governments, and look at what we're talking about in terms of the governments. 2 cities, 3 towns, 64 villages, 56 school districts, 39 fire districts, 30 fire districts, 3 lighting districts, 24 garbage districts. Does anybody really care what the name of their garbage district is? Right? There are some things you can find savings in these areas. Sewer districts, water districts, etc. Special districts, 140 special districts. Find savings within those local governments, find efficiencies, find ways to cooperate, because this, my friends, is the greatest challenge now for this state and the economic future of this state. Nassau County, if we had 1% of savings, it would be $64 million a year. Suffolk County, 400 local governments, costing $5.7 billion. 1%, we'd say $57 million. Westchester County, 400 local governments, costing $4.4 billion a year just to run the governments in Westchester County. 1%, we'd say $44 million. Second to the jobs agenda, we want to accelerate what we call our Startup New York program. I'm very excited about Startup New York because it's very simple. We have designated zones across the state. If a business locates in a geographic zone called the Startup Zone, they pay no taxes for 10 years. No taxes. No income tax, no property tax, no sales tax for any new job created in a zone for 10 years. We want to market this program internationally because I believe we can get international companies coming in to take advantage of this. The best long-term economic development strategy is education. We want to invest in that. There's an issue that's topical now on the Common Core curriculum. Common Core, I believe, was the right standard and the right goal. However, I believe it's been managed and implemented poorly. And it has created chaos and anxiety all across the system. And we are working together with the legislature to slow down the implementation until we know actually what the consequences are of the implementation. We have a panel of experts who are going to come back and give us recommendations, but we want to get that done this year. We also want to start a new front in education, which is pre-K. Every educator will tell you the maximum time of educational opportunity is when the child is young. Their minds are open, their minds are fertile. 4-year-olds, let's start pre-K, all across the state and run it as basically another grade. We have kindergarten, we'll also have pre-kindergarten. Let's educate our children to the best of their ability and start universal full-day. Pre-K will be one of only 4 states in the country that has universal full-day pre-K. It'll cost $1.5 billion over 5 years, but it's an investment. We're proposing a $2 billion bond initiative, which will be on the ballot in November, to give local schools the ability to buy state-of-the-art technology. Much of the advances in education are about technology. And getting that child, that technology, curriculum now in the clouds, the state-of-the-art schools, private schools. The child goes into school, there are no more books. Child's handed a tablet. Everything is in the cloud. Everything is on the internet. Child goes home with that tablet. The parents talk to the teachers on that tablet. It's a whole new world. We have to make sure we have the right technology to educate our children. We have a $20 million Teacher Excellence Fund. I believe in teacher evaluations. I believe we need to know what teachers are doing well, what teachers need more work. And I want to have a bonus pool to incentivize those teachers who are doing well. We want to have the best teachers in the country. We want to have the best teachers on the planet. Then you have to pay for performance and incentivize performance. And that's exactly what this does. We also have a scholarship fund that accomplishes several things. We want to get great students going to our SUNY system, CUNY system. We want to get students into the STEM courses because that's where we have a shortage. So we're offering a scholarship to students who graduate in the top 10% of their high school class and want to pursue STEM courses, full scholarship to a SUNY or a CUNY school if you graduate in the top 10%. We talked about Hurricane Sandy. If you ask me what is the greatest challenge I face as a governor, what keeps me up at nights as a governor, the honest answer would be, first, one of my daughters keeps me up late at night. She's going through her teenage years, but after that, I would say it's these emergencies and these weather conditions, which are different than anything we have seen before. I've been governor for 3 years. We've had 9 federally declared disasters in 3 years. My father was governor for 12 years. They had a handful. These are earthquakes, these are hurricanes, these are floods, these are things that never happened before, that were unimaginable. Our infrastructure, our mechanics, our engineering are not designed to handle these kinds of things. Our emergency response is not designed to handle these kinds of things. That's why really there have been a number of times where, but for the grace of God, the situation could have been much, much worse. I want to make sure that we are prepared the next time. And I don't accept that there won't be a next time. I've heard too many times over the past 3 years, this is a once-in-a-100-year flood. Yeah, 5 times it's a once-in-a-100-year flood. We have to be prepared. And I want to invest in the preparation. I want to have a state-of-the-art weather detection system because we've gotten bad information too many times. We deploy resources on the weather forecast. So when they say the weather is going to be bad on Long Island, we take all the resources from all across the state, we send them down to Long Island. And then we find out, whoops, the weather person was wrong, it's not Long Island, it's Buffalo. Everybody back in the trucks, back to Buffalo. The Weather Service depends on the state's weather detection system. And I want to have the state-of-the-art weather detection system in the state of New York. I want to start the first college of emergency management in the United States, where we have courses, that's exactly right. But it's something we need to know. We're starting a citizen responder corps. I want to make sure our people need to know what they need because you are the first responder in your home. Make no mistake. The first order of business is you and your family. And you need to know what to do under certain circumstances, and we want you trained and we want you equipped. Backup power for gasoline stations. One of the things that happened on Hurricane Sandy that nobody saw coming is we had a gasoline shortage. Why? Because 2 things happened. There was a storm. The Coast Guard closed the New York harbor, so the tankers couldn't get in. And we really don't have any backup fuel supply. So you stop the tankers coming in, that's it. It's like closing a valve. Second, the gasoline gets pumped through a pipe. The pump runs on electricity. The electricity goes down, the pipe stops. Gasoline stations had gasoline in their tanks, but they had no power, so they couldn't turn on the gas pump. That has to change. Backup gasoline reserves, generators for gasoline stations on emergency routes, etc. This is an investment in the future. And again, we have to be prepared, and I'm proud of it. The legislature is going to tackle ethics reform again this year. I proposed what's called the Public Trust Act, which is a new ethics bill. There have been several bad actors in the legislature, which creates an impression of bad actors. We want to have the strictest ethics in the United States of America so people have total confidence in their legislature and in their government because it's very simple. Government, the formula, the capacity of government is the competence times the trust. This is a competent government. The government is performing. We want to make sure that people trust the government the way they should and the way they deserve. The government is working. As I said, it's been a much different 3 years than the preceding 3 years. Senator Marcelino touched on this. We said 3 years ago, we came together and we sat down and we had a very frank conversation. And we said, look, it's not working. The relationship is not working. Nothing's happening, bills aren't getting passed, there's scandals, people are disgusted. And we decided 3 years ago to try a different way. And we said, you know what, we're Democrats, we're Republicans, but we're New Yorkers first. And let's put the politics aside and let's do what's right for the people of the state rather than what's right for the political party or the political label. Because at the end of the day, the label doesn't mean anything. And you know what? Of course we don't always agree. We're not supposed to always agree. Very few relationships in life do you always agree. In a marriage, you don't always agree. But it is about cooperation, and it is about compromise, and it is about moving forward. And that's what this government has been doing. The budget process becomes the window into the functionality of the government. Why? Because the budget is where the money is, right? Why does Washington get gridlocked when they go to do the budget? Because that's where the money is. Why did Willie Sutton rob banks? That's where the money is. And that's why you see when the government goes to do the budget, that's when you either see whether it works or it doesn't work. New York State was gridlocked before Washington ever discovered gridlock. We knew it better, literally. Over the past 30 years, 23 budgets were late an average of 50 days. And you remember the news stories every time the budget was supposed to be done by April 1, and then there would be that news story, but they can't agree, and they're pointing fingers, and they're bickering, and they're arguing. Past 3 years, we've passed a budget on time that is balanced for the past 3 years. I don't want to jinx us, but if we get it done this year by April 1, it'll be the 4th on-time budget, not since 40 years ago. Nelson Rockefeller was the last one who did it, with Speaker Perry Duryea, Majority Leader Earl Bridges, who even I never heard of Earl Bridges. I think he's the father of an actor, though. 40 years. We will have set a new record, and let's keep our fingers crossed, but I think we're on track to do that. And when the government is working better, then literally the state works better. We created 380,000 new jobs over the past 3 years. We are number 2 in job creation since the recession in the United States of America. Literally number 2. Senator Marcelino is right. We're not happy with number 2. The number 1 state, I hate to mention, is a state called Texas. Why anybody would go there to start a business, I'm not quite sure, but we're going to beat Texas, and we are en route to beat Texas. The ratings are up from all 3 rating agencies. We're proud to say our exports are up 15%. And in 3 years, we have literally changed the direction of every arrow. Spending is down, taxes are down, unemployment is down, and jobs are up. And that's what our story is all about. This state is on the right track. This state, the best days lie ahead. And my last point is this. I spent 8 years in Washington. And during that time, I worked in the Clinton administration. I traveled to every state. And I worked in every state on numerous projects. So I know what every other state has. No other state can compete with the great state of New York. Nobody has what we have. Nobody has what we have here on Long Island. Nobody has the natural beauty, has the beaches, has the history. Nobody has the proximity to New York City. Everything you could imagine you have right here. The obstacles we've had were all self-imposed. We did it to ourselves. When you hear young people leaving or businesses leaving, they always say the same thing. I have to leave. They never say, I want to leave. I found a better place. I have to leave. You're forcing me out. You forced me out with the taxes. You forced me out with the cost of housing. I didn't want to leave. I had no choice. Because if you have a choice, you want to be right here on Long Island in the state of New York. We get these taxes down. We get these regulations down. We turn those arrows. We get the energy coming back. You're going to see the best days of this state lie ahead. And that's what we're working on together. Thank you, and God bless you.